Well, I went out in the mid-70s on my own with a keyboard and a guitar and sang songs in pubs and things, teamed up with a guitarist, then we became Mirage, and then I expanded the band with a drummer and, all the rest of it. Yep, right the way through the 70s and the 80s. And in fact, Matt Aitken joined that band, whenever it was, 81, 82, as the guitarist.
When did you start songwriting?
As a kid, from about the age of 7, I started writing my own songs. In fact, my mum kept a little folder with all of them in, because I used to illustrate them as well. So it's always been a love and a desire of mine to write songs and be successful at it. And it took me till I was 32.
You've never really looked back, let's face it, since then. How did Stock Aitken Waterman come about? A combination of three very different people come together and become so successful?
I mean, I suppose you could define our roles pretty clearly. I mean, I came at it from the songwriting point of view, and between us, Matt and me were the musicians, you see. We wrote and played the instruments in the studio and created the sounds and made the records. And Pete was much more on the business side of it. So between us, I mean, I acknowledge the music business, meaning 50% of it's music, 50% of it's business. Without the business, you won't sell the music. So I acknowledge what Pete did in our team, and without his input in that area, it wouldn't have happened. But I think we needed each other, that's the point. And we're certainly, I think it's been shown that we're stronger together than we are sort of individually.
And we're talking about the early 80s when it really all started to happen, and I think you point out in the book it was an exciting time. People talk about the 60s and the 70s, but early 80s we'd seen the arrival of Wham and Frankie Goes to Hollywood and a number of others, and that was really the period when Stock Aitken and Waterman was launched, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we came out of... we were right on the cusp, you see, between old-fashioned ways of doing things and modern synthesised sounds. And when we first started, studios were some of them were tape, some of them were going digital, some of them were still analogue. Synths, some of them were analogue, some of them were digital. And I think we took full advantage of that. And in particular, we made a virtue out of it. And I think we were one of the first to do that.
It wasn't an overnight success. I mean, a lot of hard work went into it. You approached a number of labels, I think, in the early days, didn't you? Mickey Most at RAK was one of them.
Yeah, God. No, on the day that Matt and I decided, I gave up the gigs, you see, on the New Year's Eve '83, and Matt and I came up with an idea in the studio, and we wanted to take it around and see who'd buy it. And the first appointment we made was with RAK and Mickey Most, at their place, and they were out when we turned up for the meeting, and then we went round to a red bus, and he wasn't quite sure, and the last person we saw was Pete Waterman. And I remember the meeting because he was meeting Lamont Dozier at the airport and stuff, and so he asked us to come back. And I remember the fact that he'd split up with his former producing person called Pete Collins, who produced Nick Kershaw. Yeah. And I give this for Pete. As soon as Matt and I played him what we were doing and told him what we thought we could do with it, he cottoned on immediately and could see where we were coming from. Within a month, we were in a studio recording it.
I think it's fair to say in the early days, you really did launch a few careers. And I'm talking about, we played Rick Astley, for instance, lots of stories about the coffee boy at the studios there. But in the early days, Divine, Dead or Alive, Hazel Dean as well, people like that. And then later on, of course, the big names really started to take notice, didn't they? I mean, Cliff and Donna Summer and many others. Yeah. But in those early days, how did you find the talent? You wrote the music, but how did you match it up with the artists?
In those early days, a good point you make here, Martin, because in those early days, before we got a name, this worked against us when we had the name, incidentally, but before that time, what happened was we made the record with Divine because we had a connection with the record label that had signed him. And then Hazel Dean heard that record and asked us to make a record with her because she liked the Divine record. The Hazel record was a top 5 hit, and Pete Burns heard that on the radio and asked us if we do one for him, so we did Spin Me Round. Bananarama heard Spin Me Round and said, could we do a record like that for them? So those things snowballed on. And then with Dead or Alive, that was number 1. And then Bananarama, we did Venus, and that was number 1 in America. All of a sudden, the phone stops ringing. We're not being approached anymore, partly because we were becoming too successful and people thought we were making cheap or high energy, or probably it was a bit, we weren't trendy enough for them. So we then had to look on, and literally out on the streets, and we found Mel and Kim were 2 East London girls who were brought to us, had absolutely no experience of recording, but their manager said, could we make a record with them? And we fell in love with them immediately. And so that's another way it worked. They just turned up and we came out with Showing Out and Respectable.
Thank you so much for listening to this interview. If you enjoyed it, please click on the like button and ring that notification bell. And there are many, many more to listen to on this channel, so make sure you subscribe if you possibly can. Thank you.